right. Hi, Jo.
Hi, Rebecca. I'm loving that headband.
Thank you. Thanks.
Very festive.
So, Jo, you've got something for us today in the Christmas theme,
Yes.
so to speak. We're coming into a series of public holidays,
Yes.
so it's very much on the agenda. Tell us about the recent decision.
Well, I thought this was a really interesting decision because it's been the final part of a long-standing case involving the Mining and Energy Union and a company, OS MCAP, obviously in the mining industry. There was originally an application by the union that the company had contravened the Fair Work Act when it comes to requiring someone to work on a public holiday.
So just tell us a bit about what the company was doing that the union said was a problem.
Yeah, so these workers were being rostered to work on public holidays, and the ones in question were Christmas Day and Boxing Day, and the union was saying that per the Fair Work Act, a person is entitled to a day off on a public holiday unless they're requested by their employer. So the union said they weren't being requested, they were just being rostered.
Right.
So that's where the contravention argument came up. So the original decision on that, which was back in 23, talked about the request to work. So the full court, with one of the appeals, said the ordinary meaning of request is that the employees have the opportunity to either accept or decline the work on the public holiday. Yeah.
Okay.
And the
that
company,
makes sense.
Yeah, and the company didn't do that. They
Right.
rostered them. Yes. So it was pretty big back in 23 when the decision first came out. So what's happened now is that the federal court has actually handed down the penalties. Interestingly, they're not huge penalties, but they're more about the breach. So a compensation for the company breaching the act by not giving the employee the opportunity to either accept or reject the request.
Right. And does this take into account the fact that some employees might have said yes and some might have said no, or are they all saying, well, given the choice, we wouldn't have worked that day?
Yes. Well, the 85 workers that were named were people who did work on those days.
Right.
Yes.
And did they have to establish they wouldn't have otherwise worked, or it was just a straight contravention?
It was more about the contravention.
Okay.
And so the penalties were between $800 and $2,400 for each of those 85 people.
Right, so that adds up pretty quickly.
It does. And then we had a $15,000 contravention payment, which was payable to the Mining and Energy Union, who brought the application originally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did the court say around coming up with that number?
Well, they noted that the contravention was not about an entitlement not paid because of the way their salary was established for the employees. It was about the breach, so looking at the civil contravention amounts and applying that in this case. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it's a timely reminder for employers to be thinking about how they approach scheduling work over public holidays and allocating employees and resources to that. What's the best practice approach now that we've got this decision?
Yeah, well, I think you can still continue to have in employment contracts terms such as, due to the nature of the industry or the nature of the workplace, you may be required to work on a public holiday, so that awareness is up front. Where this decision comes into, I guess, that extra element is that what this company could have done is put out a draft roster which showed these people working on a public holiday and asked them to confirm that roster.
Right.
So the request is actually about someone saying, I have the opportunity to either accept or reject that request. So a draft roster is a really great way of going. Depending on the size of your organisation, a conversation could work, but obviously in this case, you'd be looking at something like a draft roster.
Yeah, okay. And if it's a large organisation, as you mentioned, the size of the organisation is going to be relevant. Are things like calling for volunteers, like who wants to work the public holidays, is that a practical approach that employers can take?
I think so, yeah, because that's them agreeing to work on a public holiday. You're requesting volunteers, they indicate that, you have that discussion to say we're requesting that you work, you've said yes, you'll be rostered.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
And of course you keep a record of all of that communication, documentation, emails, so that if there ever was a challenge, you can show that the employee had the option of either accepting or declining.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, if you want to get presents from Santa, you should definitely comply in all respects with the National Employment
Absolutely.
Standards.
And I reckon Alfie would agree with us.
100%.